And welcome back to the Foxfire Dispatch. Small sparks, big change, a better South. Today, we're joined by Paul Barringer, a Democratic candidate for North Carolina's 13th Congressional District. Paul is not a career politician. He's a lawyer and a public servant, and someone who decided, like a whole lot of people right now, that watching democracy fray from the sidelines was not really an option anymore. He is running to be the Democratic candidate in a district that reflects so much of North Carolina's crossroads. It's got growth, it's got deep rural roots, there's economic pressure, and there's a real hunger for leadership that is grounded and ethical and serious about governing. Hey, well, Paul, thank you so much for being here. I'm so glad to have this conversation with you. We just did a little bit of an intro on who you are as a candidate. And I'd really love to hear from you about your background and what led you to run for CD13.
Simple Liz, thank you so much. Really great to be on here with you. I really appreciate the opportunity to connect. My name is Paul Barringer. I'm from Lee County. I grew up on a farm in northern Lee County, right on the Deep River. And I'm a lawyer by training. I worked as a health lawyer for a number of years. I also worked in the corporate world for a long time, basically around the intersection of health, like the business of healthcare and technology for many, many years. And I ran because of the things that I saw happening that I just couldn't take one more day. So I looked in the mirror and I kind of looked at the district and thought maybe I could make a difference. And that's why I'm here.
I love that. I love that. Was there any kind of series of moments over the last couple of years that led you to that realization and ultimately filing last week?
Well, I think the biggest day was January 20th of this year. And maybe the things that happened immediately after the inauguration with the flurry of executive orders that came out after the inauguration that made me think, oh my gosh, this is not right. The things that they're doing just seem so wrong. And they seem definitely to put us on the wrong track as a country. And there has to be another way. And I think the series of things that they started back in the beginning of the year has only continued throughout the year. The you might call it a parade of horribles has just continued. And all these things that keep happening really underscore the fact that we need a different kind of a group of leaders in Congress that are able and willing to hold the executive branch accountable for the things that they do.
That totally makes sense to me. So like you said, you've built a career outside of electoral politics, in lawyering with the health field. What about that background helps you enter the space that you feel like politicians maybe don't what they lack, what you bring to the table?
Well, I think that the perspective that I have from work in the business world is very useful. You know, managing to a budget or a time frame is critical in the work that I've done, and I think that's all a kind of helpful perspective to take. But maybe even more than that is what I always found myself doing in the corporate world was getting people to collaborate to solve problems, and I think that's a big part of what we really need to have more of in Washington. And I also found that I could communicate about simple or complicated issues in a way that was helpful to help people understand kind of the crux of the matter. And I think that kind of communication about complicated issues, including the range of complicated issues that we're facing as a country around healthcare, immigration, our financial sustainability as a nation. Those are all things where it's helpful to be able to kind of cut to the chase. And I hope to be able to bring some of those skills to both running for Congress and then being also elected.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And so you mentioned healthcare stuff. I know I have a number of policy questions because I am a policy walk, and I
Let's do
also
it.
gonna feel I'm like I'm so excited you're running for you're running for this congressional seat. I really think Congress is a place where we can sort a lot of this stuff out. So with healthcare, what is your solution to like the ridiculousness that we have with our current system? Are you a Medicare for all who want it, Medicare for all, some third rail? What do you think?
So I think it's very complicated, and there's probably not one single solution, but there are a lot of issues that we have in our current system, many of which are there because of good intentions. So I definitely I'm a very positive person. I tend to try to think about how people who have enacted things along the way or pushed to enact things, they had the best interest of people, their constituents, the country at heart. But then there's also unintended consequences that I think attach to that. And so maybe let me explain a little bit. The Medicare and Medicaid were enacted as part of the Great Society in the 1960s, and they were based on kind of entitlement programs, or not entitlement, but indemnity insurance programs as they existed in the 1960s, long before there was any kind of managed care. And basically, what that meant is that there was a service and somebody paid. And the thing is, whenever you have third party payment for services, it does tend to kind of distort behaviors and then creates a lot of motivation for people to, um, you know, get paid for things, right? And like, there's a guy who used to be the administrator of what's now the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, who talked about how what was then HICFA, but now is CMS, is like the ATM for healthcare. So I think for too long, there's so many actors in the system that have really just stuck their card in and like gotten reimbursed for whatever it is, right? And I think there's amazing things that have come out of all the money that has flowed into healthcare over the last 60 years, in terms of advances in technology, especially that have done amazing things for life saving, and just incredible advances in technology, but and process and knowledge, right? But then it also has tended, like with anything where the government subsidizes a lot, it tends to drive up the underlying cost of healthcare, which I think is like at the crux of why we have a very unaffordable system today, right? If you look at like what a doctor's office visit cost in the 1960s or early 70s, on an inflation adjusted basis, it would be something like $70 today. So like, not nothing, but like that's a far cry from what it actually costs today, right? On real dollars, like
Where
in the
you've got a
200s.
copay, and then it's like, well, the insurance is going to pay this, and then you're still on the hook for
Yep.
this other group of fees.
Exactly.
Like,
So I mean, the underlying cost of healthcare is a huge issue. So all of that said is, I mean, I think that there are things that we can do that help position us in the long term for a more affordable system. But I also think you can't, like in the present political moment, what's happening in terms of pulling the rug out from under people with, say, the cuts to Medicaid from last, the big, mega bill from last summer, which is going to cause 11 million Americans around the country to lose Medicaid coverage, or all the things that are happening right now with the squabbles over the Affordable Care Act premium supports, that are going to likely not be resolved before people see their premiums spike, and that will lead to a tremendous loss of coverage. I think we have to maintain the coverage. We have to enable people to have insurance today, but also we have to look for a future where we find ways to address the underlying cost of healthcare. I mean, I think focusing on outcomes, focusing on primary care, focusing on wellness, those are things that kind of can affect the underlying cost of healthcare. Looking carefully at incentives. I think, Republicans and Democrats probably both have great ideas about things to happen for healthcare. But one thing that seems very certain is that if you're trying to do it in the last 24 hours of the year, you're probably not going to get a good solution. So it takes
mm,
collaboration and people coming to the table to work in good faith together. I think maybe I'm too naive, but I think that's possible. I think that's what we need to work for. And then that's a really long answer to your question, but ultimately, I believe people need to have access to healthcare, and we need to make access to both insurance and healthcare services. But then we should also look for ways to address the underlying cost of care, because that's an issue for our kind of long term financial sustainability as a country.
that makes sense. I know we are what feels like light years away from this being a reality. But if there were an option if you were in Congress and there's an option on the floor for an opt-in, whether it's opt-in to Medicare, opt-in to Medicaid, opt-in to some other system that the government is going to run, that it would allow, somebody in their 30s to choose healthcare that isn't tied to their job, a mom to choose an option for her kids that is not. Is that something that you would be open to?
Course, yeah. I mean, like, and remember, Obamacare, it was originally Romney care. I mean, like the thing is, like, what they were trying to do with Obamacare was based on what Mitt Romney tried to do in Massachusetts, which is de-link the connection between insurance and employment, and find a way for people to be able to pay to buy in. So I think, I mean, fundamentally, that's what needs to happen. And I don't think, I mean, I've worked in the insurance business for a long time, so I have perspectives on that. But I don't
Hmm.
think the insurance is like the problem necessarily. It's just there's, in a way, insurance could be almost thought of as like you know, it's something that people need to have, kind of like a utility in a way. I think there's probably some regulatory models you could think of that are like that. But in some of the European countries, there's universal access, but there's also private insurers that are involved in kind of providing that layer between care and government financing. So I think there's lots of different models you could look at.
Cool. I think you come to this from a really interesting perspective because of your work in, health law. So thank you
Sure.
for talking through that with me. Um, I was looking through your website a little bit preparing for this and learned something new about you, that you had done work in the prison system,
Yeah.
teaching literacy and doing Bible study and stuff. Would you tell me some more about
Yeah,
that?
sure. I mean, it's been really impactful for me. And it's probably one of the most important things I feel like I've done along the way. I started doing it way back in the day when I was in law school at Carolina. And my apartment, I lived in Glen Lennox. Do you know where that is? The Glen Lennox apartments? Anyway,
No, I don't.
there was an Episcopal church right down the street and like up like a block away. And I would go there and to the because I'd met some people there that went like on Tuesday nights or whatever up to the Orange County Correctional Facility outside of Hillsborough. And that was kind of like fellowship and Bible study. And then that, as I moved on from there and was in different places, I transitioned into, I did literacy work at a prison. I did like a lot of work with like a guy, like just sort of visitation with a couple of guys who were in Central Prison in Raleigh. um, I did a lot of career counseling work with some folks in different facilities too, where you try to help the guys and women too that are about to get out, um, right before they get released, to come up with the things that they need to think about employment, which I found really, really fulfilling, especially when you would work with someone and then you like, and this only happened a few times, right? So like it's kind of like shouting into a void, so much you don't hear back, but occasionally you do, and it's amazing. But the couple of guys or gals that I helped that then like they came back and through the folks at the facility and said that like what I had done had really helped them find a position, to move on with their lives in a positive way. So it's really important. I mean, I feel that this is America, right? Like it's the land of second chances. Everybody deserves a second chance, and we got to work with kindness and love to help everybody that we can. Um, so that's just the way that I come at it, and it's been really satisfying doing that along the way.
I think that's really, really cool. I think there is a lot, I think, that is like wrong with our prison system that dehumanizes and takes humanity away from people. But I think that kind of work within the system is very humanizing and like dignity giving in a way.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is like, there's, I just feel like there's the justice system and people have to have consequences for the things that they do and all that. But like, in the eyes of God, we're all the same, right? And like, we're all, flawed human beings. And we just have to like, I mean, it could have been me, right? I could have done something stupid and ended up in the wrong spot. So we have to love each other and try to help each other along the way.
Hey, this is America. Last I checked, you can be a citizen or non-citizen, have done nothing wrong, and somehow still land in
That ain't
alligator
right. I mean,
Alcatraz.
that ain't
So,
right. It's
you
not
know,
right. It is not right.
no, um, no, it's a real shame, and I know we're working to make it
Well,
better.
these are the people
Um,
who are running the show right now. I mean, they're supposedly the conservatives who care about the Constitution. The Constitution, like the Bill of Rights, is all about due process and individual rights, and yet they're intent on blowing up those individual rights wherever they have the chance. So it comes back to I don't know if it's gonna be my campaign theme or not, but it ain't right. It's definitely a recurring theme with how I come at what they're doing.
You definitely need that on a t-shirt, whether it is the official campaign slogan or
Okay.
not. You
Do
definitely
you
need
like
it on a
it?
t-shirt. I think it's good.
Okay,
I
good.
think it's good. I think it encapsulates the kind of the place we're in of like, "Oh, what do you mean we're doing it this way?" You know?
No, it's not right.
Um, so,
So the thing is, like,
oh,
if I just like will go in on that riff, like the thing that I was just struck with last week, there was a, you know, Donald Trump has used the power of pardon like no other president ever, right? He's pardoned like almost
so many
1,700 people,
criminals,
so many people.
so many
So,
criminals.
and most of those are the January 6 people, which is completely wrong to me. And but then there's a like if you look at the remainder of them, I mean, I think there's you can kind of well, maybe he has a point. For example, like I was reading an article and there was a thing that piqued my interest because he said he'd pardon. They said the article said he'd pardoned a trail runner. There was a guy who was chasing the fastest known time going up. I think it was like the Grand Teton. And he took a social trail on the way down, which is like not an officially sanctioned trail, but a place that people have used. Other people, or maybe he did it on the way up to pass some hikers that were slowing him down. And other people had done that and had not gotten in trouble. But he got into trouble. And for whatever reason, Donald Trump pardoned him, which personally I think is okay. I'm
Was
just
like
saying,
the one
yeah.
pardon that you were okay with out
Well,
of all of them?
no, well, hold on a sec. And then there's the thing with the guy Tom Lewicki, who was the sports investor that or promoter that got pardoned at the end of last week. And he it was like a sort of collusion and kind of conspiracy to like suppress competition with Live Nation, I think. And I can't remember all the details, but like I read a lengthy article about it in the Wall Street Journal. Kind of came away from that article thinking like, don't know. Maybe he's got a point. I don't know. This is like you could at least kind of see the arguments one way or the other. But then, like there's Orlando Hernandez, the former president of Honduras, right? Who was convicted after a 3-week trial of basically conspiracy in connection with narco terrorism. That is
And
so wrong. And then beyond the pardons, there's the notion of those poor guys clinging to a boat in the Caribbean being gunned down, and like that it's so morally shocking that it makes me it just makes me really upset. Like to that because that is not the country we should be living in.
it is, I mean, it is a square that circle kind of is like, what do you mean we can pardon somebody who was convicted for drug crimes, but people who have not been convicted on suspicion of drug crimes are deserving of murder? Like that
Exactly. It just
is,
is wrong.
yeah,
It's wrong.
and really antithetical to due process,
Mm,
to the Fourth Amendment,
No,
right?
it's
Like just
so wrong.
completely
How
against.
do you do that? Anyway,
Uh,
but the trail runner, that's maybe okay.
But oh well, we'll put the trail runner aside.
Yeah.
Um, North Carolina's 13th district is a complicated district that
Mhm.
is has some fast urbanization in some places, some real rural places. How would you describe this district to folks who don't live here, outsiders, potential volunteers, donors?
Sure. So the district, as I say, is an oddly shaped district that looks like the reverse of the letter C, or going around Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill, or maybe like Pac-Man eating the triangle. And in terms of its composition, the way I describe it to folks is that it's kind of a mix of small town, rural, but then ex-urban type areas as well. With it, when you see the kind of the fast growth expanding out from the triangle area, so I think that it looks like America, right? Because all of those things are part of America, and I think that's where if you think about America as kind of ultimately sort of moderate in its positions, like if you averaged it all up, I think that's what our district really looks like, and that's where the platform that I have is with quite moderate positions is something that I think fits pretty well in terms of what people actually want and what they believe, and the response that I've had as I've taken that out to people all across the district has been, I think, validates that that's the case.
Yeah, no, I would agree. It is, although I will say, maybe less Pac-Man. I really do think it looks like a salamander or a dragon
Mhm.
or a
Yeah,
gerrymander,
for
if you
sure.
will.
Yeah, definitely.
Funny little district.
Well, the thing is, like
Funny big district.
the Democrats maybe invented gerrymandering, right? Because I think wasn't Jerry right in Massachusetts the original gerrymander? Like he was a Democrat, but the Republicans
Sounds
have
right.
perfected it because they have computers, right? I guess we all have computers, but they're using them to great effect, right? Just to break it down by like almost a house by house by house. So it creates, I think, challenges, but in the environment we're in, I think there's a real opportunity.
Absolutely, absolutely. When you're talking to voters in this district, what are you hearing most consistently from people, regardless of party?
I think, I mean, affordability is a huge concern. Um, People are really concerned about the prices of everything going up, and it's very interesting to hear the president and other folks that are billionaires around the president talk about how things are not unaffordable because I guess they're not unaffordable if you're a billionaire. But like if you're like me and you actually do your own grocery shopping at Food Line and you have a head for numbers, like you know things are
You know how
more
much your
expensive.
groceries have gone up.
I
Yeah.
know, I can remember numbers. So that affordability is a huge thing. I would say that I also there's concern about immigration. Um, People, I think there's the things that people want around that I've heard from immigration is like we want the border secure. And I think we want process and kind of consistency, predictability. Um, but like people want there to be opportunities for others to come here and do the jobs that need to be done. And I don't think anyone likes, or hardly anyone likes, the cruelty that we've seen from the current administration's immigration policies displayed in place after place around the country. And certainly we don't want it here.
Yeah, I mean that leads well into one of my questions because yes, we have had ICE, we have had CBP here in North Carolina recently, and it is an unfortunate fact, I think, that some of our current congressional representation has voted to empower ICE and encourage our police organizations to work with them. What does humane immigration policy look like to you?
Well, I mean, I think there's a lot of things Congress probably can't do, but but the one thing that I think Congress definitely can do and has within its power to do is to regulate immigration, right? Because that is a core congressional responsibility. And there's some money attached to it, but it's not like a massive new social program. It's just they have to get together and collaborate and cooperate to come up with something. And that's where the Senate proposal from the 2024 Congress, which represented a substantial amount of progress around immigration, probably more than had been made for some time, seemed like such an opportunity. And it's very regrettable that then candidate Donald Trump torpedoed that bill. But what I personally would like to see is something that looks kind of like that we have, definitely secure the border. Because I do think that the President Biden did not pay enough attention to this in the first 3 years of his administration, which is a miss, right? We need to secure the border, but then we need to find a way to bring people here to work. Someone has to pick the tobacco and the strawberries and the blueberries, and we still, there's opportunities for people to work in tech and other fields. Why would we not want to have those people come here and do the jobs that can be done? And then I think we need to provide a pathway for some people to get to citizenship or to acquire permanent legal status. I think the Congress has the obligation to create that kind of predictability, and it should do that. And if both sides could work together, I think they can make it happen.
It feels like that should be possible,
I mean, I
it
do.
it feels like such a shame that we're living
Mhm.
in a world where, like, people are getting pulled at their citizenship hearings and told, like, "Not for you, not
Yeah.
today, maybe not ever." Like,
I mean,
it's
here's
just
like an example I heard about on the radio. There was a mom that had come here, and she had two sons that came here. They had temporary status. They were pursuing permanent status. That the mom had a disabled child, right, who was like younger, maybe like low teens or like just before teens, and the brothers had just finished high school and were going to go to trade school. And they went to their hearing and they got yanked and sent back to Central America. And the mom and the disabled child stayed here in the country. And to me, that's just exactly the wrong thing to have happen, because you're losing your people who want to be here, who worked hard to get through high school, who speak English, and who want to do a job in the trades. And you're keeping the mom with a disabled child who we want to take care of, but it's very expensive, right? That seems like you have the priorities totally misplaced.
There are too many just like really horrifying
It
stories. I'm
really
thinking of
is.
a young woman who was in the Triangle area who was snatched, who took care of her special needs brother who was she was like a recent college graduate, Rumeza Ozturk, who, was a student, not a North Carolinian, a student up north who just lost months of her life to, it's just really a shame.
It is.
Um,
It's not right. It ain't right.
what is an issue that you care deeply about that you feel like hasn't gotten enough attention but should?
An issue that hasn't gotten enough attention. Um,
Mhm.
well, I mean, the national debt is a huge issue. I think for our long-term financial sustainability as a country, we have a debt that's at 38 or 37 or 38 trillion dollars and counting. The big, beautiful bill that passed this past summer, while cutting taxes for the very wealthiest people, added $4 trillion to the national debt. We just saw that an increase in the national debt of 1 trillion in the fastest amount of, or the quickest amount of time that you would ever seen, like growth of the national debt and went by 1 trillion. I'm kind of mangling the way I'm putting that, but you get my drift. And so this is not an issue that the current crew cares anything about, which maybe makes sense because Donald Trump has very often borrowed money and not paid it back, in his business career. But as a country, I think we need to take care of our bills. And I know from talking to people around this district that it is an important priority. People see that as something that's not just a kind of a financial issue, but it's really wrong to leave as a burden for the next generation. There's a guy who heads the Pete Peterson Foundation, which is an organization that focuses on debt issues and kind of economic competitiveness. And he talks about how if you're in a hole, the first thing to do is just don't dig any deeper. So I do think that as a country, we need to just find ways to begin to move ourselves in the right direction around deficits. And it's been done before. Bill Clinton and Newt Gingrich worked together in the 90s. And I think that it can be done again. And if I have an opportunity to work on that, it would definitely be something I would want to do.
Yeah, it is hard to imagine because in my whole cognizant lifetime of politics, this national debt has always been at an exorbitant number. And so to think about, the 30 odd years ago, the national debt having been squared away by a sitting president and then just the ballooning afterwards, it's wild.
And they got the
Um,
deficit to zero, but they were on a pathway to getting the debt to zero, but they never got the debt to zero, but they were on the right track, right? But right now we're not on the right track at all with either annual deficits or the national debt. And so it ain't right.
It ain't right. It puts us on a shaky
It
footing with
does.
some other countries that like we maybe don't want to be on
Yeah.
a shaky
No,
footing
exactly.
with. Going back to CD13 a little bit, what do you think that like national Democrats often misunderstand about this kind of districts like this?
Well, I mean, I guess my personal perspective on this district is that I mean, it's a gerrymandered district, but I think that the people are quite centrist. Most people are quite centrist in terms of their mindset, which I think provides an opportunity for Democrats who could run like, sort of in the middle with moderate positions to potentially win. And to the extent the National Democrats don't see that as viable, or they kind of get caught up in issues that that take away from our ability to win on economic issues, I think that would be a miss, right? So the Republicans would love to have a battle on culture war issues because they always want to have that and they win on that. I think if the National Democrats go into that, that trap, it's not going to be helpful for us. But if we keep the focus on what's really about making lives better for the average person, and the people who work, the and by people who work, I mean everybody, because most all of us work, right? We're all kind of working class at a certain level for the most part. But so we will focus on what's going to make people's lives better and how do we build our communities stronger and more resilient. I think those things have the opportunity to sell.
Yeah, and I'm also hearing this idea of like, let candidates be candidates for their district. Like, we're not running Zoran Mamdani
Mhm.
in random North Carolina district. We're this is more of an Abigail Spanberger kind of district, and there are different Democrats who fit different places.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, like, she just picked up districts in her election last month that Trump won by substantial margins just a year ago. So I think that it shows that a message like she has, or like the governor of New Jersey, the governor-elect of New Jersey had with her quite moderate message too. I think that is appealing to voters across the spectrum, and that's where we have a great opportunity in a lot of jurisdictions going into next year's election.
I think that makes sense, especially as we look at the swath of potential voters who are really potential voters. It's not just the Democrat or the Republican, it's the Democrat, the Republican, or the couch.
Yeah.
Those are the folks that we gotta get out, and they are often
Mhm.
more in the middle or more
Yeah.
moderate. At the same time, how do we talk about the things that we consider democratic values without watering them down? I hear the humanity with which you talk about immigration issues, and hear that kind of democratic value coming out. How do you bring that to different policy spaces?
I mean, I think they're just people share common values, like, especially in a district like ours. I think there's a lot of people, both Republican and Democrat, that I've talked to who are disgusted with the current immigration policies. So if your solution or your proposed approach is about secure the border, provide a pathway for people to come here and work, provide a pathway for people to gain citizenship in certain cases, or permanent status. There's predictability, there's stability, but you're not giving away the store with that. I mean, it's a rules based order that I think can appeal to both Democrats and Republicans, right? And I think that you know from a healthcare standpoint, people want to have access to healthcare treatment when they need it. They know that they need coverage because it's almost impossible to pay for treatment, but if you don't have some sort of insurance coverage. But I think if we can find ways to thread the needle to include market-based solutions that can help to drive down the underlying cost of care over time, but to continue to provide access to people to have, to get to the healthcare services they need. Again, I think those are things that broadly people can get behind. And, maybe there's a certain part of the population that can't get behind that, but I think there's a lot of potential support for solutions like that. And like ditto in the national debt. What Doge did, they said they were going to save $2 trillion in the current year, right? Of course, they didn't do that. They created a lot of instability, and they did a lot of dumb things. But I think what we really need to do is to work thoughtfully, carefully, strategically. How do you begin to modify programs and put those changes into effect over time to minimize the impact, minimize the harm, but that also put us more on a sustainable pathway financially? Maybe that's naive and unrealistic, but I think that's what we have to work towards.
Yeah, I mean, well, one of the things that comes up when I think of Doge and the shit that they did was like some of the cutting that happened around national parks
Yeah.
spending. That was like, we're cutting $2 million, and it's like, this brings in $65 billion to the United States a year. What are we doing? Cutting 2 million in
Yeah.
expenses to you know.
Yeah, no, 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 totally. I mean, I talked to some folks at the energy department who, like, Doge had come in and they had cut programs that were bringing in hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue, right? So the things that they did were penny wise and pound foolish. And again, I just don't think the way to it's not the way to run a railroad. Well, I said that in the first Trump term, but I think they've really perfected it this time, and it ain't right.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I know we've talked a little bit about a bunch of different policy stuff. And I'm curious about your ideas around foreign policy, specifically with regard to USAID and what's happened there and like the rebuilding that's gonna need to happen in terms of American soft power.
Mm. I mean, I like that's a huge priority for me in terms of like what I've seen in my life. I spent a fair amount of time traveling overseas and saw when I was younger and saw how our use of soft power, which is I think kind of soft diplomacy, really advanced our interests, but also built international friendship and goodwill in a way that other countries didn't always do. And it's really tragic to see what they've done in terms of decimating that structure, which had done a lot of good. It's not to say that USAID didn't have some issues. I think anyone could see that there were issues. For example, right, in providing food aid, sometimes I think we have destabilized local agricultural economies as well. Um, but all that said, I mean, when people are starving, we need to try to help. I firmly believe that. I know I had a friend who was at in the government right at the end when the new administration came in, and she had strongly advocated for us to continue to um, provide aid in South Sudan, which has been just war torn for so many years and has definitely been a place with a lot of conflict and strife. And the current crew said, no, we have no strategic interest in serving supporting the people in South Sudan, which to me is so wrong because we do have a strategic interest. Point number one. And point number two, just from a legal matter, when you're providing care, you have a duty to continue to provide care at a certain level if people are going to
Mhm.
suffer if you don't. So um, the kind of rebuilding that's going to happen with the new Congress, I think is hard to know how that would happen because the current administration, through their policy of rescissions, is not spending money that's been duly appropriated by Congress, right? They're sending the money back. Um, and even despite court orders to the contrary. So I think it could probably take a different presidential administration and a different Congress, but I feel confident that in due time, we will get back to a more rational approach to using foreign aid, both to help other people around the country and to advance the United States economic and policy interests, because every other president up to this point has seen USAID and foreign aid as a key instrument for advancing American interest. And that includes Ronald Reagan, George Bush, Bill Clinton, all of them saw this. And so it's really regrettable have what we have right now, and they'll definitely take rebuilding, but I'm confident that in due time it will happen.
I really hope so. I also really feel like, there's gonna be such pressure for it to be as effective as possible when we try to provide whatever solutions we're, able to in different branches of government. Um, this is a total aside related to USAID. Um, what do you think of like the idea of micro grants as a way of helping like people outside the country, people inside the country? I've seen some interesting work that like folks are doing specifically in developing nations with that
Sure.
seems to really impact communities
Yes.
positively.
Yeah. I mean, like the thing is, like the Grameen Bank, I remember in Bangladesh years back was kind of a pioneer with that. They gave these very small loans to people for economic development purposes. So, I mean, small scale, decentralized, kind of power to the people. To me, that's where the opportunity lies, both in our own country and in other places around the world. And I mean, it's a place where like an optimist can see a lot of opportunity for using technology, say in Africa, like where you don't say you don't have to develop a full scale phone grid because people use cell phones now. So you don't have to run the wires anymore. Technology allows you to leapfrog over kind of the requiring the development of that physical infrastructure because it can be wireless. like the use of like electronic payment mechanisms in Africa, I know has been a big part that has encouraged economic development. So I think there's some great models where both the government and private industry working together have created a lot of opportunity in developing countries around the world.
Cool, cool. Another kind of real policy question. What does common sense gun reform look like to you?
Well, I hate what we got.
Certainly.
Right. And I mean, I believe in the Second Amendment and I don't want to go take away people's guns. Right. But I also know that both Republicans and Democrats have done things in the past around guns. Right. In particular, the Brady bill, like that, you know, happened as a result of the shooting of Jim Brady and Ronald Reagan. So I think it looks like background checks, red flag laws. I think the some ghost gun restrictions, right? Like the gun that was used by the murderer Brian Thompson last year. This just happened like a year ago, and the United Healthcare CEO.
Mhm.
And I think maybe there's some other things you could do, like some incentives or financing to provide help and support for people to store their guns in locked cabinets. So I think I would like to think that there are some regulations that respect the essence of the Second Amendment, but that also put us in a place where we're less likely to have mass shootings and school shootings. And I think those are those are worthwhile trade-offs to consider, and we got to work towards that.
I would completely agree. And yeah, I'm interested in that conversation of like, cool, like what tangibly can we do? Cause like school shootings really such a problem. Like crazy shooters all over the place in this country, really such a problem. Like
Yeah.
um
Well, I mean, they say like guns don't kill people, people kill people. Well, okay, that's true technically, but like it's but crazy people with guns can kill a lot more people. So what can we do to make it less likely that crazy people have guns? And also at this point, I mean, there's so many guns out there, right, in the country, like floating around everywhere. It would be really hard to do. I mean, I don't think you could take away you couldn't get rid of all the guns in society.
mhm.
But I think there are some things that we should try to do that put us in a position to make it less likely to have school shootings and mass shootings. And I just think those are worthwhile for us to explore. And hopefully there's enough people in the middle. I think the 70% of there's probably more like 85% of people in the middle and on the left that would accept that. So I'd like to see if we can't find some common ground around that.
I would be an ardent supporter of that
Good.
for sure. Yeah, I was 5 years old when Columbine happened, and like remember sitting crisscross applesauce in the library getting told about that. But like I did not grow up with like a deep fear of school shootings in school, but I see friends' kids, I see kids that are like a degree removed from me now, and that's like just such a real fear that they deal with. It's just so sad.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I do think that we have a national conversation around the acceptability of saying things that are violent, right? Which I think we just need to move to a different place where it's not okay. It's not anymore to say things that really are calling for physical violence about people that you might disagree with. I don't think that's right. And unfortunately, I think the president has not set a good example about that because he said a lot of things that are really unfortunate about a lot of people.
So many ways, written, verbally, yeah, truly, just a fire hose,
Yeah,
and we've seen it affect people who are serving in state legislatures and things like that.
yeah,
Um,
that ain't right.
that it ain't right. Um, that kind of leads into my next question. We know that trust in institutions right now super low. Um, what do you think it's going to take to rebuild some of that trust? How can we do some of that work?
I mean, we have to have people who are going to act with integrity and really try to serve everyone that they're not just elected by, not just the people that vote for them, but everyone in their district. So I think we have to find ways to listen, to discern, and try to build common ground that hopefully can help begin to position us on a pathway for more trust. It's a tall order in a social media age. And I feel like I'm a poor example with social media because it's not like I don't look at social media, but all I get are like dog videos. And I guess that's what they feed me because that's what they see me looking at. But like I don't see all the bad stuff, but I know there's a lot of bad stuff that's out there that tends to make people feel more extreme about their views. But I think we need people to act with integrity. And there's James Madison wrote, there was one of the Federalist papers, and I'm probably mangling this a little bit, but I know the essence of this I'm right on with. But he talked about how the Constitution and the laws alone are not enough to restrain people's behavior, right? We need self-regulation, right? Which is essential for a functioning society because you have to have people willing to self-regulate themselves in order for everyone to get along. And it sounds kind of old-fashioned to say this, but self-regulation is almost like the concept of virtue. So I think it's not too much to ask for people to demonstrate some virtue and or self-regulation, whichever one you like. And I think that we'll all be better off if we can do that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it kind of connected to the idea of like, if you are holding public office, we want you to be above reproach in some ways. We want to hold you to a higher standard in some ways because
Yeah.
you've said, "Hey, I am gonna step up and serve the people." Um, Okay, so next question, another policy question. Obviously it's a younger audience who does kind of listen to this. And I know that part of the first time that we talked, we had a really I felt productive conversation about reproductive
Yeah.
choice. What do you want people who are of childbearing age to know about how you would or would not legislate their reproductive choices?
So I don't think that the law should get in the way between the healthcare choices that a person needs to make, right? So, ultimately, I I personally I don't like abortion, but I don't think anybody really does like abortion. Um, but I think that we've got to find ways to, I mean, accept that it's going to be um, part of, it's an issue that people have to contend with, and so therefore we have to have a legal framework that allows people to seek those healthcare choices, including healthcare support and services, including an abortion if they need that. I mean, like, it's a hard concept, and there's a lot of morality that's tied up in it. But I just, again, fundamentally don't think the law should get in the way between the choices that a woman or anyone needs to make between themselves and their healthcare provider.
I really appreciate that answer. Can I push back a little on one idea?
Sure.
If so I know you said, hey, I don't think anybody likes abortion. And I think the Democratic Party is a big tip that we can exist with that perspective, but also I think that that tent is big enough for I am pro-abortion. Abortion is a thing that allows women who are poor and working class some economic mobility in a way that we and the lack of it can inherently really affect people's socioeconomic status for the rest of their lives. And I also it's I hear you. I mean, medical procedures suck, right? So no, but I on some degree I'm with you, but also I'm man, I love chemo because what it does to cancer, even if the side effects kinda suck. Um, and so I would just say, like, to to me, the tent is big enough that, we can have both of those opinions within it, and, that's cool and okay.
Yeah, well, I think also, I mean, a lot of these policy questions that are really fractious and hard is if you come at it trying to understand where other people are coming from, and I mean, like, and you come at it from a perspective of love or even just kindness, trying to kind of hear people out, it really helps. And I mean, ultimately, it's a pluralistic society that I think that we have to find ways for the law to reflect the needs and kind of preferences of everybody, not just some people. And especially on issues where people have such strongly held views as this, like you have to try to find some common ground because it can't be one or the other.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I mean, I really do agree, like it very much resonates with me to like come at this from a place of compassion, come at this from a place of curiosity
Yeah,
to have these conversations because that's where something more productive, something that comes from a place of like learning
yeah,
is gonna happen. But and really, I want people to hear you say that because it's like I know we've talked about this being a conservative to moderate district, and I think a lot of low propensity younger voters think of less liberal and think, what does this mean related to my health care? And so I think it's good to know that you're like, yeah, maybe personally that healthcare choice not for me, but like I'm not going to legislate your right to have access to it.
yeah. I mean, yeah, I think that's absolutely the case. And also I mean, there were times when it wasn't such a partisan issue too. Like George H.W. Bush was president of Planned Parenthood in Midland, Texas, way back in the day. So, I mean, that was a long time ago, but still, like, there, I think we've got to find ways to come together and minimize the number of issues that we're sort of fighting to the death about, and like look for chances to find opportunities to collaborate and cooperate on things that we share kind of pressing like concerns about, right? Which is all to say, hopefully we could maybe like can we kind of come to a place where we're okay on abortion, but let's focus on immigration, right? If we gotta, because you're never gonna get people to agree on abortion, but can we get people to agree enough on immigration that we could pass a bill that that would help sort of provide some stability in that area? So all that's to say is that like let's find issues of common ground and try to find us ways to stop beating ourselves up over the fractious issues that people fundamentally disagree about.
I mean, and I would just take a series of single standalone bills coming down the pipe. Like, give me individual shit from Congress. I don't want any of this omnibus shit.
Yeah.
Like, I would like all of the senators and the Congress people to vote on. Here's the issue we're voting on, and like one and done, and we can move on to the next one.
Well, and partly that actually does come back to some of the fiscal issues because we have entitlement programs which function on autopilot, right? The spending goes up year after year after year through these automatic increases for the most part, right? Like even the cuts to Medicaid in the big beautiful bill, I think there's still going to be a growth in the total amount of spending in Medicaid. It's just that it's a cut in the growth rate. So like that, all that does is like that tremendous spending and entitlements has crowded out other spending and right. I think also put us in a position where there's less and less for Congress to actually debate or kind of discuss or collaborate on because they're really kind of at the mercy of this monster that they created years back, which, so all of that kind of goes to the fact that if we could find ways to collaborate and address some of the debt issues, maybe we could then have more bandwidth to talk about some of these other things that we could work on together, just like you're saying.
Mhm, mhm. How are you staying hopeful and grounded as you campaign in what we know is a tough district?
Well, I mean, the things that have happened in the elections and over the last month, I think provide a lot of reason for, well, like I'm calling people, right, to try to get people to support my campaign. And listen, I have to be wildly optimistic, and people, I think, in response are cautiously optimistic. But the things like the governor's races in New Jersey and Virginia, of course, like we talked about before, I think show that dramatic swings are possible in quite red districts. The election last week in Tennessee, where the Democrat lost that special election, but that district, which goes around Nashville, looks not entirely unlike the 13th district because it's around a big city, but then kind of has rural and exurbs and small town.
And if we were to swing that big, right? Because it was a Trump 22
Yeah,
district, and
she swung at 14
it was a
points.
Trump 9, and I think we're in the
Yeah.
teens for this
So I
district,
mean,
right?
like
So if
it was 58-42 last time, right? So
Mhm.
if you swung like like so that's 16 points. If you swung 14 points, it would be 51-49. So I'd still lose if it was me. But I think that means that we don't have to flip that many people, right? So we get there. We still have our work cut out for us, but it's I think a closer race that people were thinking. If you look at what's happened,
Hmm.
and then of course the race in Miami this week, the mayor's race that just happened 2 days ago, that where a Democrat won, and a Democrat hadn't won in Miami for 30 years. And it was driven a lot by the immigration issues. Obviously, this special population of Miami, because I think I read like 66% of people in Miami are of Hispanic origin. So there's a lot of particular interest in the immigration issue, but that also has tended to be a quite conservative constituency in past elections. So again, I think if we can come up with the like common sense, pragmatic, not dogmatic positions, and I have enough resources to get my message out, I think there's an opportunity.
Hmm. Hmm. If if in 2 years you are sitting in Congress, what do you hope that voters say that you delivered for them?
Well, I definitely want folks to say that I listened, and I would love for them to say that I kept my word to do in doing the things that I said I would do. And I would love to be a part of policy proposals that at least have the potential to make life better, more affordable, and kind of just generally better. All of those are things that I hope people would say. And I mean, like the things that I would like to focus on if I can get elected are, supporting a bipartisan immigration reform bill, working to protect and enhance social programs like Medicare, Medicaid, and the programs under the ACA. But not that there's no changes, but like we've got to do things to help make the healthcare system more sustainable for the future, but also providing coverage for people. I would love to continue to work to support benefits for vets, because the current administration has cut staffing at the VA, which makes it harder to get people on the phone. I would love to work to help get a farm bill passed. There hasn't been a farm bill passed since 2018. And I think in large measure because the Congress can't work together, and a farm bill is going to have to be bipartisan. So that's definitely a priority for me. And then, doing something, like I said, if you're in a hole, just don't dig any deeper. Would put us on a path towards addressing the annual deficits and the national debt. So I know that's a tall order, but like those are the things that I would like to focus on. And I hope I would be able to come back and say, look, I said I would do this, and this is what I did around each one of those areas.
I mean, I think it should be a tall order. They're big jobs. We got big problems facing
Yeah,
this
we do.
country. All right. Kind of a fun last question, and then a little game of this or that. What is the best fried chicken you have had in the district?
So I mean, like I really like the when you get the $5
Don't
bag
say
of chicken.
Food Lion.
Yeah, I like it's probably the wrong thing to say, but it's really delicious. Have you had that chicken?
Hi, so Walmart is our grocery
Okay.
store of choice, but I mean, they got some good fried chicken too. I'm not gonna
Is
lie.
that true? I'll have to
Yeah,
check that
it's
out.
not bad.
Can you get the chicken breast and like fried chicken breast in a bag?
It's like an 8-piece or a 12-piece. It's
Okay.
like not in a bag. It's in a plastic
Okay.
thing,
All
but
right.
potato, potato.
So I mean, Hardee's is pretty good too. Yeah. I'm sure.
Okay,
I'm
well,
sure
we're gonna
there's.
have to
I
take you to
mean,
Trusol
there's
and
probably great
Creedmoor
other fried chicken.
sometime.
So anyway, it's all good.
Well, we're definitely gonna have to go to Trusol for fried chicken
Okay.
sometime in the near
Oh,
future
was
and
that good?
Creedmoor. Yeah, they're really good. They've got great fried chicken, they've got great fish. Really good soul food for
Okay.
sure.
Where's that? What's it called?
At
True Soul?
Trusol and
Okay.
Creedmoor.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. I'll check that out.
And I'm pretty sure it's not in district part of Wake County, but in downtown Raleigh, there's a place called Beasley's, like Beasley's Chicken and
Okay.
Waffles. And they have, ooh, man,
Really?
good
Okay.
fried chicken. Yeah.
Yeah. Raleigh's gotten real fancy. I'll say every place is real fancy in Raleigh these days.
That is also true. Um, okay, looking at this or that, just like a kind of rapid fire. Do you prefer coffee or sweet tea? Early mornings or late nights?
Late nights,
Small town diners or big city restaurants?
small town diners.
Kind of figured after that rally. Doing a deep dive on policy or a town hall Q&A?
Either. Either's fine. Probably policy.
Calling donors or knocking on doors?
Oh, knocking on doors.
You gotta go to one, the North Carolina mountains or the North Carolina coast.
I'd probably go to the mountains.
A long campaign car ride or a packed day at a rally?
It's kind of like all I do is drive my that I drive my car so much. It's like so far to get around this district. So yeah, a lot of long car rides.
Mhm. I feel like I know the answer to this one too, but optimist or realist?
Oh, optimist.
Mhm, mhm. And then finally, playing it safe or taking a risk?
Risk.
Well, that's why you're running,
Yeah.
right? So,
We got to do this. I mean, again, this isn't about me, it's about we. We're going to do it together. And I think like based on all the folks I've talked to, there's a real opportunity. So I appreciate the chance to connect here so much. This is awesome.
I'm really glad we did this. Thank you for joining me today. This is gonna come out the last day of filing. Kinda good, maybe kinda auspicious. You were great. It was great talking with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Liz. It's really appreciate it. It's fun.
Awesome.
All
Well,
right.
we're gonna stop doing this. Don't leave yet. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Foxfire Dispatch. If today's episode lit a spark, help us fan the flame by sharing this episode with your neighbors, dropping us a note on social, or emailing us at thefoxfiredispatch@gmail.com with your questions, stories, and ideas for bringing about a better South. We put out episodes on Fridays, and if you like our content, you can find us at the Foxfire Dispatch on Instagram, YouTube, and Blue Sky, and at Foxfire Dispatch on TikTok and Twitter, aka The Bad Place. We would be especially thrilled if you would subscribe to us on YouTube. Until next time, remember, we are who we're waiting for. Now go get in some good trouble.